Hey folks, I am Aardwolf, and this is Elite Dangerous, and this video is two things. One, I will talk about in a second in regards to Elite Dangerous in particular, but the other thing is that this video is the kickoff video for a new channel called Aardwolf Digital, to which the majority, but not 100% necessarily, of my video game content will be directed in the future. So, if you're interested in seeing me play video games and watching me bore everybody to death, or to sleep at least, this is the channel you'll want to subscribe to. If you are not interested in board wargaming at all, then you may want to unsubscribe from the other channel. I hate to tell people that, but that is going to be the primary content of the Aardwolf's Lair channel from here on out. I may do occasional video game stuff when something like Hearts of Iron 4 comes along. It's already out, of course. I just don't have it and haven't played it. But I may do that. That may be something that actually hits both channels, believe it or not. I wish YouTube had something built in where you could do that, but I will have to do it twice. Anyway, Elite Dangerous. What I'm going to talk about Elite Dangerous is what is it and what to know before you actually start playing the game. Okay. So what is Elite Dangerous? Elite Dangerous is part of this sort of spaceflight sim renaissance that we've seen in the last couple of years. The big dog on that particular block is Star Citizen, which is kind of out in alpha. Elite Dangerous is out. No Man's Sky just came out. I will give you a one-sentence summary of No Man's Sky, and then anything else I want to say about it, I will make its own video. I am less disappointed with No Man's Sky than a lot of people are, but a lot of the things that those people are complaining about No Man's Sky do have some validity. So if I want to talk about that in detail, I will do a separate video on it, which will appear on this channel, Aardwolf Digital. So what should you know before you start playing No Man's Sky? It is a spaceflight sim. It is a one-to-one simulation of the Milky Way galaxy, the vast majority of which is unexplored. And frankly, over the lifetime of the game, whatever that turns out to be, it's not going to all get explored. If you look at some of the online maps, you can see how much of it has been explored or settled or traded over or whatever, and it's a tiny fraction. Now, you don't just start anywhere, however. You start in the settled space sort of area. So you do need to know that you will be playing with other players So if we go to start, I'll explain this first. There are basically 4 different modes in which you can play. The arena is, I've never done it, it's like a competitive match-made shootout type thing. If you're into that kind of thing, by all means, go nuts. Elite Dangerous is, I would say, the flight simiest of the Elite games, as far as I know. I haven't played them all. But a lot of that may just be due to the fact that we have better controllers now and better graphics and a lot of that stuff. That may be why I feel that way. So the other 3 sort of main modes that you can actually play the ongoing game in are open, private, and solo. Okay, solo, you are playing in your own private instance of the Elite Dangerous universe. There are NPCs around. There are quite a lot of NPC ships around, unlike No Man's Sky, for example. And you can interact with those NPCs, but you will not interact with any other players. A private group is basically the same thing, except that you can invite other people to be in that private instance, okay? And that could be 2 other people, or it could be 20,000 other people. The one that I am in is called Mobius, and it is a PvE dedicated private group, and it's got like tens of thousands of players signed up for it. What the concurrency is on that, I couldn't tell you. But the concurrency for Elite Dangerous, the open play, which is sort of MMO mode, is pretty robust as far as I can tell. I have played mostly in solo mode, and my recommendation is that at least for your first couple of sessions until you get your feet under you, I would say play in solo mode and not have to worry about getting shot at or accidentally firing on another player or anything like that. And then, by all means, go to a private group. If you go to the Elite Dangerous forums, you'll see the names of private groups that you can sign up for, and you don't normally have to like get authenticated or anything. You can just like put the private group name in, and that's it. The other thing is that you don't have a persistent character in quite the same way as you do in a conventional MMO. You have a save, which records your progress, but you can wipe that save out. So if you go back to the main menu and go to options, you can see that you can clear your save here. And that basically wipes out all your progress. You start completely gold. If you want to do that, maybe you decided you screwed something up and need to start over, by all means, go ahead. But it's de facto just as persistent as an MMO would be. But you don't have character slots. It's just you. So if you are unhappy with where you are and you haven't gotten that far, then clearing the save and starting over is maybe not a bad idea. The other thing to talk about is the tutorials. Now, the tutorials are quite good, a little bit boring. There are training videos, which are just videos, which you can also watch on YouTube, by the way, on the Frontier Development's YouTube channel. And there are training missions. Now, there's a bunch of training missions. One of which is the introduction to VR. If you got VR, good for you. I don't, so if you have that, maybe go through this. That's great. There's a bunch of combat tutorials, and to be honest, I don't see any good reason why you should play through all of them. The ones you should play through are the launch and docking tutorials, and I would say play through launch once, because once you see how it's done, you'll have it down. Docking can be a little tricky as far as fussing with the controls, so you might want to do that 2, maybe even 3 times. And then I would say do the target practice and basic combat tutorials, and then maybe one of these other ones, and at that point, start playing the game. Don't spend hours and hours in the tutorials, but do a couple of them, particularly launch and docking, and maybe 1 or 2 of the basic combat ones. That's my general advice. Now, the other thing I will talk about here are the controls. Okay, this is a game that you can control with a mouse and keyboard. You can control it with a gamepad, and I've seen people do that very successfully. I have a gamepad. I've never used it for this. Or you can buy a joystick, or better yet, what's called a HOTAS, which is a hands-on throttle and stick, which is a combination joystick and throttle. Now, my recommendation for Elite Dangerous, I think it's a super immersive game, but your immersion will be magnified greatly if you are playing it with a HOTAS setup. Now, if you search Google for HOTAS, H-O-T-A-S, and start looking at what the prices are on them, you might be your jaw might hit the floor, because they can be super expensive, and there tend not to be a ton of different models on the market, unlike say just plain joysticks or gamepads or whatever. There's not a ton of them on the market at any given time. There might be 5 or 6 right now. A lot of them cost somewhere in the $125 to $150 up to $400 range. If you are super serious about Elite Dangerous, by all means, spend what you're comfortable spending. If you're just getting started, then my advice is to buy a rig called the Thrustmaster T-Flight rig, which is what I have. It is not that fancy. It runs somewhere in the $50 to $60 range, and it's a 2-piece thing where you can combine the throttle and stick into one solid unit if you want to, or you can split it up. The way I have it set up is on the left-hand side I have my throttle, and if I had video editing capability here, I would show you a picture of this. Then I have the keyboard. I do still have some stuff mapped to the keyboard. Then I have the stick. Then I have my mouse and mouse pad on the far right. So I have access to everything. There are 12 buttons on this rig, which sounds like a lot, but considering the number of controls that you have available to you, basic, not all of which you'll use, but a lot of which you'll use. There's more than 12. So you do need, at least with this rig, you do still need to map stuff to the keyboard. But what you don't want to do, and what I don't want to do, is have to fuss with the keyboard while you're in the middle of combat or something like that, or in a vulnerable spot or anything like that. You want to make the control scheme as efficient as you can. Now, I could give you my control map for the Thrustmaster T-Flight system. There is a default Thrustmaster T-Flight setup. What I did was I started with the Thrustmaster T-Flight default, and then I fussed with it to make it the way I wanted. My advice for setting up controls is, by all means, use the default to begin with, or find a YouTube video where somebody adapted whatever HOTAS system you have to Elite Dangerous, and start there, but then tweak it so that it works best for you. Everybody's going to play this a little bit different. You can see that there are a ton of controls. Having come back to the game after a little while, I kind of forgot what some of the buttons on the stick did, so I had to get used to that again. But there's a lot of customizability in this control scheme, and I strongly advise developing your own control scheme for a game with controls this complicated. So at this point, now that you know what all the modes are, and now that you know that you're going to have to look at the controls, and you should probably start with the tutorials, you can by all means start playing. So that is where I am going to leave off on this video. I hope that this has been helpful. There were just a few things that I felt like people should know before they start playing Elite Dangerous. Of the sort of spaceflight sims that are kind of playable now, I think Elite Dangerous is, I think, the best one for me. Some people will find it boring. It's super sandboxy. If you like that, then you might be really into Elite Dangerous. I think you'll be a lot happier with it if you've got a throttle and stick setup, because it's just so much more immersive. The music's really good, the atmosphere is really good, the graphics are really good, but it is not a particularly high system overhead game, so don't sweat too bad about whether your machine can run it or not. If you have a halfway decent machine, you shouldn't have any problems. It is a game I think you should check out if you're interested in this kind of game. No Man's Sky is recently released, and I guess I'll give you the super brief opinion of that without getting into its own video. And if I have more to say about it, I will do a video on No Man's Sky. I actually like it. The way I'm approaching it, it's kind of like a relaxing game. I can only play it for about 45 to 60 minutes at a time, and then I have to give up and go do something else. But I'm not nearly as dissatisfied with it as a lot of folks are, but those complaints that those folks have are not without basis. It is not really as advertised, and it has a lack of engagement with the player, I think, to a certain extent. But anyway, let me defer detailed opinions on No Man's Sky to its own video, and which hopefully you'll see at some point. In the meantime, if you're interested in seeing me bore you to death with video game stuff, please subscribe to the channel. If you've enjoyed this video or found it helpful, then please like the video. That helps YouTube search algorithms, and it would be super helpful. Share the video around if you like, as a matter of fact. So, but I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's been helpful, and I will see you next time.